Nick Ogden, what a great chance to sit and chat with you for a little bit. Your background as one of the earliest pioneers of e-commerce, if not the earliest pioneer of e-commerce in the early 90s, establishing and building Worldpay, selling it to the Royal Bank of Scotland for way too little money, and it recently got purchased for $42 billion, as I understand it. Creating ClearBank, the first new clearing bank in the United Kingdom in 250 years, and now building RTGS Global, which is a global clearing bank with a couple of Nova Scotian individuals. Lots to talk about. So Nick Ogden, I really want to understand how you were able to lead the creation of the first new clearing bank in the United Kingdom in 250 years. That's a bit of a milestone.
Yep.
Tell me how that came to be, and the value that it brings. Let's actually, why don't we start there? Why don't we start with the value that ClearBank brings to its customers, and how it's different, and then let's go back and how did you create it?
Okay, I mean, ClearBank's unique, absolutely unique. We're as close as you can get to a central bank. One of the key tenets, we're neutral, independent, all right, and financially incredibly stable. What do I mean by that is that we can repay all of our customer deposits on demand, all of them. So if all of my customers today turn around and said, Nick, we've had enough, give us our money back, we can pay them straight back from our facilities at the Bank of England. It's whole cash, full cash.
That's not a standard practice in banking.
It's not, all right? You might ask why I did that. I was around when the global financial crisis in 2007, 2008 kicked off. And I was actually in Iceland when the Icelandic currency collapse occurred on the fateful Monday morning at a meeting of Visa, the card scheme. And by lunchtime, the meeting had descended into chaos and pandemonium. And we were asked to go back to our hotels. And they said, well, if anything's open in this island tonight, we'll take you out for supper. But we really don't know what's going to happen.
My Lord.
We went back to the hotel wondering whether we'd have to buy a trawler to escape back to Scotland. To get out.
But with what currency?
Yeah, that's right. And so at 4 o'clock, Gerd Herder, who was the Prime Minister of Iceland at the time, addressed the nation. And a young lad who'd been serving us breakfast that day was standing in this room watching this announcement, crying his eyes out. And we said to him, are you okay? Do you need to sit down? The normal stuff that you do. He said, I've worked for the last year to earn enough money to pay to go to university. And I now haven't got enough money to go to university. And it was because his bank had spent that money, not their money, his money. And so when I was putting ClearBank together, I thought we've really got to make sure that we actually look after other people's money for them. If they want to do something stupid with it, that's entirely up to them. Yeah. But that is not our responsibility as a clearing bank in the UK.
You just described the global financial crisis in a very, very human way.
Yeah, it's the way it happened, and most people didn't see that. So effectively from that, I was having a cup of coffee, believe it or not, at a conference. And a lady called Mary Starks, who was the interim payment service regulator in the UK, who I knew, was with some colleagues from the Treasury, and we just, as you do at conferences, chatting in the corner and whatever. I said to Mary, I said, what are you going to talk about today? She said, I'm talking about financial inclusion and access to payment systems. So I'm a cheeky Brit. So I turned around and said, well, it's going to be a very short presentation then. I said, because there isn't any. And she said, what do you mean? I said, well, look, come on, the whole thing's controlled by the existing market. And I said, I can't understand why we haven't set up a new clearing bank in the UK. I said, there must be a regulatory or political reason why we wouldn't do that. And she said, why do you say that? I said, well, if you look at the changes that we've had in our food retail distribution since the arrival of Aldi and Lidl, two German food retailer chains, when they came into the marketplace, everybody said they would fail. I said, the reality is they've now taken market share because they've been allowed to change the market. The only way you change the market is by changing the market, and there has to be a decision to do that. And I said, so that's my view. And I said, actually, I said, if there was a chance of doing that, I said, I'd probably have a go at setting it up. I said, but my expectation is that if I go down Threadneedle Street, knock on the door, ask to speak to Mark and say, Mark, can I set up a clearing bank?
The governor of the Bank of England.
Governor of the Bank of England, Canada. You're Mark Carney. The doors would be slammed in my face by the purple-hatted, top-hatted guys at the door, and I'd be told to go away and head towards the Tower of London. Anyway, Mary, bless her socks, said, I'll think about that. And a few weeks later came back to me and she said, I've talked to the Treasury, the CMA, the PRA, the FCA, everybody I need to talk to about this. And she said, nobody can think of a reason why we haven't done this before. And everybody can think that it's probably a good reason why we should do. So if you want to have a go, here's a contact name at the FCA. Go and start talking.
Wow.
And that was it.
That was the start.
Yeah, and so we started talking to the FCA for about 5 or 6 months, going through this idea. All right, it was only, it was like, had to have a whiteboard. Every meeting was a whiteboard meeting.
And just to be clear for those, Financial Conduct Authority, which governs financial conduct in the UK.
Correct. And then we have the Prudential Regulatory Authority, which manages our banks. And so after about 6 months of drinking their dreadful coffee, actually we used to go out to Costa because it was better, we got to a point and said, right, okay, now what are we going to do? And they said, look, we've had a meeting. We're going to give you 100% support on this project. So we're going to set up a meeting with the PRA. We're going to come along to that meeting with you. And we're going to basically, see where we can get to with this. So we headed off to the Bank of England, had the meeting with the PRA, agreed the processes that we're going to go through, agreed the parameters that we had to work with, which were very, very simple. We had to be identical to the existing big 4, big 5 banks, all right? And we had to be non-reliant on them. We'd work with them. It wasn't from a competition perspective, but if you were going to change the market, you had to do that. And I said in one of the meetings, if we can't achieve that, then we're going home. We can't, it just won't work. And we had huge regulatory support. And, I can't, I've historically thanked them too much probably, but without the regulatory support that we had from everybody, we'd never have got this project done.
And I think that willingness is really crucial. I mean, I don't think you thank them too much, because that courage and willingness is competition part of their mandate?
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's a key point. So in Canada, it's not.
Yeah. Well, you're really missing out on something. I stood at Money 2020 and did a joint presentation, all right, with the head of innovation from the Bank of England at Money 2020, which is an industry event for fintech. All right. And I followed Nick Leon, and I said to everybody in the audience, I said, I am so proud of this moment, the fact that I'm following on from somebody from the Bank of England, right? And they have an innovation team. We have an innovation team at the FCA. That's how much the UK is embracing potential changes and opportunity. If you don't do that, you're never going to get it home. And if you look in Europe at some of the, some countries, Luxembourg have got this approach. Other countries don't. Those that have created a third leg to the mandate of competition have I believe, and I'm biased, but a distinct advantage over
globally, without question, no question. So let's just tell me one or two, as we begin to wrap up, one or two of the successes and the accomplishments of ClearBank. But how long did it take you to get from when that first conversation occurred to when the bank was launched? What was that period of time?
Oh God, that was, it took us from March of 2014, we were authorized in December of 2016.
Wow. For me, that's a very reasonable amount of time, I would think.
Yeah, it was hard work.
Hard work. And from a technology standpoint, you were building the tech at the same time as you were going through the regulatory approvals?
Yeah, I'll tell you something. To find a little funny thing for you. We sat in the meeting with the Bank of England. They said, "Where are you going to build this bank, Nick?" And I said, "We're going to build it in the cloud." And they all looked out the window like, it's because in late 2014 the cloud wasn't quite what it is now. And I then explained that actually no, it's not quite. It's not that cloud technology and whatever. And we're going to build the whole of this stack ourselves. And the reason why we're going to do that is so that we don't build a legacy. Because we can buy stuff, but if we build stuff, we'll avoid the legacy.
Yeah. So how long did it? So you built the tech at the same time as you were going through the regulatory process. So you launched in December 2016? No,
in the UK, you go into a period of mobilization, which is where you pass to, you become a bank. It's quite interesting. You go from, 1 minute being nothing to the next minute being, as I was, executive chairman of a UK bank. Quite an interesting transition. But anyway, the mobilization is to go through anything that we knew that we hadn't tidied up during the application process, and to let the regulators do checks and balances, which is quite fine. we were becoming the first bank ever to become members of all the UK payment systems at the same time. That had never happened. All right. And we were consolidating them in so they were failover. So if our high value systems went down, we could flip to our faster payment systems and vice versa. So we're building in super resilience to ensure that we had full customer throughput. We were full real time. We had no batch processing. So it was a completely transformational approach. And I'll put a little plug in for a small firm in Redmond in America you may have heard of called Microsoft, who were very, very, very helpful in that process.
That's fantastic. And so when did you formally launch providing services to the market?
We started bringing customers on during the back end of 2017 and have continued to move forward slowly and progressively since then.
Fantastic. And now
we employ 250 odd people in London.
And the business continues, I suspect, to grow quite well and prosper.
It does. I think there's a curse from somewhere called "We live in interesting times," and the last few months have been quite interesting because I'm certain you've seen in Canada the flip from cash to digital currency. So we're a digital bank, so we're just seeing volumes going like this.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Nick, thank you very much for this. Really tremendous insights into what you did to really transform banking in the UK through one particular effort alone in the establishing of ClearBank. Forget about all the other things you've done over time with Worldpay and other great companies you've developed. So thanks for that. And what I look forward to is a conversation now about how on earth you're building now a global clearing bank with a few Nova Scotians clearing system. Thank you. With a few Nova Scotians. So thanks very much, Nick, and look forward to that next conversation.
Thank you.